Hello everyone, and welcome back to another video. And today, I'm going to be talking about the different popular vote scenarios that could occur within the 2024 presidential election. Make sure to go ahead and hit the like button and subscribe if you are new to the channel. The first popular vote scenario I'm going to be going over is a Biden plus 5 national environment. In 2020, Biden managed to win the election with 3 states with a combined 41,000 vote margin in an election where basically 155 million people casted a ballot. Biden ended up getting around 81 million votes, Donald Trump around 74 million. Biden ended up getting around 51.3% of the national popular vote. Donald Trump managed to get 46.9% of the national popular vote, resulting in a 4.5 popular vote victory for the incumbent president. And so now looking at 2020, his approval rating back then was a basically 52% approval rating on election day. As of right now, he currently sits at a 40.3%, favorability rating. And so that is going to be a problem for him getting reelected. However, due to trends with college educated voters and suburban women, a Biden plus but a Biden plus 5 electorate may not actually be a bad thing for him. In fact, he may actually win pretty easily here. As of right now, in a Biden plus 5 popular vote scenario, I'd say that all these states would vote over 10 points for Donald Trump. I'd expect Iowa to vote at an 11-point victory for the former president, even in an environment where Donald Trump is losing the popular vote by 5. I'd expect Ohio to be around a 9 percentage point victory for the former president, as trends for white working class voters in the state have continued ever since Obama won the states twice in the 2008 and 2012 elections, respectively. He would also win Nebraska at large, as well as the first congressional district by a safe margin in a Biden plus 5 national environment. I'd expect him to win South Carolina by around an 11 percentage point victory, similar to his 2020 victory. And now, for the safe Democratic states, you're going to see states like California, Oregon, Washington vote over 10 points for Biden. They would probably be even more Democratic than what they were in 2020. I'd expect Colorado to be around a 15 to 16 point win for the incumbent president. Hawaii would also be in the safe Democratic category, around a 20-ish point victory, 20 to 25 points. Texas, I'd expect, would probably be a 6-point win. I think it's going to trend away from the Democrats this cycle, even if Biden wins the popular vote by 5, as Biden is deeply unpopular nationally, and I still think it would affect him even in a very favorable popular vote scenario. I believe Florida would vote for Trump by around 7 points in this scenario. I still expect him to flip Miami-Dade County in this electoral college scenario, as well as making gains back in Pinellas County, making gains in the big city areas, and definitely gaining with Hispanics nationally. He'll probably get around close to 40% of the Hispanic vote nationally in this scenario. I'd also expect Donald Trump to get around 10 to 11% of the black vote in this scenario, which would be more than enough to win some of the crucial swing states that we will cover in just a second. States like Illinois and New York would still be Democratic. However, I'd expect Illinois to be a 15-point win, similar to Colorado, and New York would fall to a 20-point victory for the incumbent president. The northeastern states would still vote for the incumbent president by solid margins, but would definitely decrease from 2020 as well. Mainly, the reason why Biden would be winning the popular vote by 5 is that Donald Trump's rural margins wouldn't necessarily be enough, and his rural turnout would be low enough for Biden to be able to win the popular vote by 5 points. I'd expect Alaska to be around a 7-point victory for Donald Trump in this scenario. I do think the state is going to trend significantly to the left, even in 2024. And so this is definitely a warning sign for Republicans in the future. I'd expect New Mexico to be around an 8-point victory, voting significantly to the left of Colorado. I'd expect Virginia to also vote. Likely it'd probably be around a 8 or 9-point victory for Joe Biden. New Hampshire would still be a 6-point win for the incumbent president, and Minnesota would be around a similar margin, including Maine's first being safe alongside Maine's second being safe. However, I do expect Maine to actually vote by a lean margin in this scenario, as the third-party candidate share with Robert F. Kennedy Jr., Jill Stein, and Cornel West would still be prominent in this scenario, and Donald Trump is polling ahead in the aggregate by around 4 points in this scenario, even voting to the right of some states like Arizona, Wisconsin, and Michigan, as well as Pennsylvania, in some crucial swing state polls, with the most favorable poll in the state being a +6 Donald Trump victory. And so I do think it's going to vote, significantly to the right compared to what it was in 2020. And so now, looking at the rest of the swing states, I'd expect North Carolina to be a 2.5 point win for Donald Trump. He won it by around 1.3%. And even if Biden gains in the popular vote, I still expect trends to definitely affect the result here. And I think Donald Trump would perform significantly better. I think in the state of Georgia, he does actually narrowly pull it out. In this scenario, he'd probably win it by about half a point. Gaining African American support would definitely help him. However, I think that Donald Trump would end up losing white support in this scenario. The white vote would probably shift around, 3 to 5 points to the left, which is why states like Georgia, Arizona, Nevada are still going to be relatively competitive. Arizona, I'd expect Biden to win it by about 3 points in a +5 national environment. The Maricopa County, which is definitely, the most rapid growing county in the United States, as well as in Arizona, is drastically shifting to the left, and I would expect it to trend to the left this cycle, and I'd expect Joe Biden to end up doing better in this national environment. I believe Nebraska's second would only be a 3 point victory for Biden, as it has been redistricted to be a little bit more favorable for Donald Trump and Republicans overall. I believe Michigan would be about a 1.5 point victory for Joe Biden in this scenario. He would still underperform his 2020 performance, but would do well enough with white college educated voters in a place like, University of Michigan and in the big city areas well enough in order to win the state by about 1.5 points. I think Pennsylvania would actually vote to the left of Michigan and vote by around 2 points for Biden, as Biden would do extremely well with suburban voters and rural turnout would not be where it would need to be in order for Donald Trump to win the state. I do think Nevada would actually vote for Donald Trump, even in a plus Biden 5 scenario. I believe that in this electoral college scenario, Biden is still going to struggle with Hispanic voters, and I think that Donald Trump would still win Nevada by about a point or so. And Wisconsin is the final state on the map. I'd expect Biden to win it by around 0.9%. This state is one of the, basically one of the whitest Rust Belt states that there is in the nation. And with the white shift in the, national environment for Joe Biden, I'd expect Biden to slightly improve in the state of Wisconsin, unlike the state of Michigan. One of the reasons why Michigan is voting to the left of, where it was in 2020, and even voting to the right of Pennsylvania, is because of the fact that, the Israel Hamas conflict is definitely affecting his turnout in communities like Dearborn and in big city areas, which is pushing the state a little bit more to the right compared to Pennsylvania, and even a little bit more so than Wisconsin. And so this would be deemed as my Biden +5 national popular vote scenario. The next scenario I'm going to be covering is a Biden +2.5 percentage point victory in the popular vote. It is sort of similar to the Biden +5 scenario, except you're going to see certain states continue to vote to the right of where they were in the previous scenario. Maine second would be safe. Alaska would end up probably being around a 9 point victory for Donald Trump. I think it would still vote under 10 even in this scenario. I do think that California, Oregon, Washington would be safe, as well as Hawaii, including Colorado, including Illinois and New York, as well as most of the Northeast. However, New Jersey is approaching below the 10 percentage point victory. Ohio would join the safe Republican column in this scenario. Maine's first would be safe Democrat, as well as South Carolina joining the safe Republican column, leaving a wide variety of swing states. I think New Mexico would be around a 7 point victory for Biden. Virginia would be around a 6 to 7 point victory for the incumbent president as well. I believe Maine would be around a 2 point victory. Minnesota would end up falling as a 3 percentage point win for Biden, and New Hampshire would fall as a 4.5 point win for Biden. I think Texas and Florida would be approaching, Texas would definitely be an 8 point win, while Florida is around a 9 point victory for Donald Trump in this scenario. North Carolina is approaching its 2016 margin, as it does vote for Donald Trump by around 3.5 points in this scenario. Donald Trump would also pick up Georgia by around a 1.5 in this scenario. I also believe that Nevada would be around a 2 point victory, Wisconsin would flip to Donald Trump in this scenario, as well as the state of Michigan voting for Joe Biden ever so slightly, as well as the state of Pennsylvania still being a lean margin. It would vote for Joe Biden by the same amount that it did in 2020, around a 1.2, 1.3 percentage point victory. Nebraska's second would actually be within a point of flipping in this scenario. It would be probably a point and a half, and you would see the state of Arizona narrowly go into the Biden column, and this would actually produce a Biden victory in the electoral college. So even if Biden's winning the popular vote by 2.5, we still have to be careful, as Biden could potentially win the election even in an electoral college scenario like this. Next up, I'm going to be covering the tied national popular vote. Both candidates would be receiving around 48% of the national popular vote, or I would at least be tied in the national popular vote. Donald Trump would still carry his safe red states from the previous examples, just like he did. Ohio and Iowa would join in this column. Like the previous scenario, Alaska would end up joining the safe column, as well as South Carolina, including Maine second, giving Donald Trump 149 safe electoral votes. I'd also expect Texas to join the safe column, voting for Trump by about 10 to 11 points. Florida would be borderline likely. In this scenario, the more Republican the popular vote gets, the more Texas actually votes to the right of Florida because of the border crisis. If Donald Trump is doing better in the popular vote, it's because I'd expect his turnout to be a lot higher due to crucial issues this cycle, like the border crisis, inflation, the economy, foreign wars, etc., as well as Biden dipping in turnout. Hawaii would still be safe alongside California, Oregon, and Washington. I even believe that Colorado would still be right above the 10-point threshold. It'd probably be an 11-point win for Joe Biden, as well as Illinois being around an 11-point victory for Biden, including the state of New York being a 15-point win for Joe Biden. Most of the Northeast would be over 10 points. However, New Jersey would vote right below that margin and would be around an 8-point victory in this scenario. I'd also expect the state of New Mexico to still be likely. It'd probably be around a 5-point victory for Biden. Virginia, on the other hand, I would actually believe it would be under 5 points. I'd expect it to be around a 3 or 4-point victory for Joe Biden. Maine's first would end up being safe Democrat. And Maine would actually be pretty competitive in this scenario, which we'll get to in a second. Wisconsin would be lean, alongside North Carolina being around a 4.5-point victory. Georgia would be around a 3-point victory, as well as Arizona flipping in this scenario, giving Donald Trump about a 1.5-point victory in the scenario. Nevada, I would expect, would be approaching its likely margin, voting for Donald Trump by around 4 points. Michigan would end up being tilt in the scenario, including Pennsylvania. Minnesota would be around a 2-point victory for the incumbent president, with New Hampshire being around a 3-point win. I'd also expect Donald Trump to win Nebraska second by about a point or so, and I think at this point in time, he'd already be carrying the state of Maine, as the high third-party vote share would be affecting this scenario. The next scenario I'm going to be covering is a Trump plus 2.5 national popular vote. In this scenario, Donald Trump would be carrying all of the safe red states, by a pretty decent amount. Even Texas and Florida would no longer be in the question in the scenario. Nebraska second would be safe alongside Nebraska at large. California, Washington would be safe. Oregon, I think, would fall under 10 points, as well as Colorado. Illinois would fall under 10 points. New York would still be over the threshold, but I think it'd be around a 12 to 13-point win. DC, Maryland would still be safe. Delaware and New Jersey would end up falling into the likely category. New Mexico and Virginia would be lean, including the state of Hawaii being safe. Alaska would be safe. North Carolina would be likely. Georgia would be approaching the likely status in this scenario. Donald Trump would also be winning Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania very, very easily in this scenario, including winning Arizona by a lean margin, with Nevada as a likely state, and the state of Minnesota being tilt Democrat, alongside Nebraska second being lean, with Maine second being safe, as well as Maine's first being safe, alongside Maine at large being a lean Republican state. with New Hampshire being around a 1 point victory for the incumbent president, giving Joe Biden 223 electoral votes to Donald Trump's 315, the same count from the last scenario. The final popular vote scenario I'm going to be covering in this video is a Trump plus 5 national environment, which is the most unlikely. However, if you were to actually apply the polling error to the current RCP aggregate of 2.7% to Donald Trump's current lead of 2.8%, Donald Trump would actually be approaching around a 5 point victory in the national popular vote. And so in this scenario, Donald Trump would be winning all the red safe states very easily. Texas and Florida would be around 15-point wins, with Iowa and Ohio approaching 20-point victories for Donald Trump. You would see states like Nebraska, be huge margins. South Carolina, Alaska. Donald Trump's out here with 219 safe electoral college votes. North Carolina would be around an 8-point win. Georgia would be a 6-point victory. Nevada around an 8-point victory for Donald Trump. Arizona would be approaching the likely column, but I still think it would end up being a lean Republican state. I think California, Washington, and Oregon would still be Democrat, but Washington would finally fall under the likely category. So would Hawaii. I think Hawaii would only end up voting for Biden by around 6 to 7 points in a Trump plus 5 national environment. I also think that Colorado would be likely, alongside the state of Illinois being right above a 5-point victory. I think it'd only be a 6-point win in this scenario. I think New York would fall under 10 points and would only end up voting for Biden by 8. Most of the Northeast would end up falling in line. A lot of these states would fall under these victories, and New Jersey I'd actually expect to be a lean state in this scenario. Now, Wisconsin would end up approaching a likely margin, be a 4.5-point victory for Donald Trump. Michigan being around a 3-point win. Pennsylvania being around a 2.5-point victory. Virginia would end up getting really close. It would basically be within a 1.5 points. Maine's first would end up being a likely, with Maine at large being a lean Republican state, almost a 5-point victory in this scenario. Minnesota would end up flipping in this electoral college scenario, as well as Nebraska's second being likely Republican, giving Donald Trump 325 electoral votes so far. And the last two states, New Mexico and New Hampshire, I think New Hampshire would still vote for Biden, even in this scenario, just because of the fact that it is a left-trending state, and I expect the white vote to trend to the left nationally from 2020. However, New Mexico would join the Republican column, as Donald Trump would be gaining with Hispanics nationally and would vote significantly to the right of Colorado in this scenario, giving Donald Trump 330 electoral college votes in this extreme scenario. And so that is pretty much it for all of the possible popular vote scenarios in the 2024 presidential election that I see as the most likely. Make sure to go ahead and hit the like button and subscribe to the channel if you are new. And make sure to follow the Twitter and join our Discord server in the description down below. And I hope to see you guys very, very soon.